Okay, so I want to add on a little section here about how your beliefs can create assumptions, preconceptions, and prejudices. And the easiest way for me is just to outline it like this for you, and then you can print it off as well if you like. Now, I just want to reiterate that we have, I mentioned before that we have unconscious beliefs and that or that most of our beliefs are unconscious, but we also have something called irrational beliefs. So irrational beliefs are just that. They're irrational. They don't make sense. If you look at the data, if you look at the evidence and everything else, it just doesn't make sense. So we form these weird irrational beliefs. And as I said before, beliefs come from childhood, and often when we're completely unconscious or when we're taking stuff on from our parents, our caregivers, our community, the world in general. So it's not our fault that has been created, but it just does become completely unconscious. And so that's why most irrational beliefs are unconscious, and we don't even know how they got there in the first place. Sometimes we can figure it out, but most of the time they just formed in a very unconscious manner. But I want to show you how your beliefs actually create assumptions, preconceptions, and prejudice. Now, an assumption, if you look at the definitions of the words, an assumption is the same as a belief. A prejudice is a fixed idea, and a preconception is an opinion. So if you look at this description I've given you here, and I've said a person's assumptions, preconceptions, and prejudices, core beliefs can be described as their truth, their belief about how things work and ought to work. If you recall from my book, I spoke about my religious upbringing and that I had adopted a belief from my parents that if you were to be a good person, or a good person goes to church, a good person has certain habits, that's what creates a good person. I mean, we even had one that you had to be poor. Poverty showed that you were a good and noble person. Now, if you look at that in the light of day, you'll go, but that's irrational. That's crazy. There's loads of good people out there that have loads of money. People like Oprah Winfrey and lots of other people. They are good people. You don't have to be poor to be a good person. So that is an irrational belief. So that was kind of the belief that I was raised with. And I've just detailed in this little document here just to show you how that is created, because it creates a conviction. Your convictions are learned from your early childhood. So with mine, I grew up with that belief of thinking that I had to be poor. I had to be in a state of poverty. And what that does then is that when you have this conviction and you have this belief that you have to be poor to be a good person, guess what happens? You're always poor. You always have money issues. You always have money troubles. You don't earn enough money. And when you do earn enough money or earn any kind of money, you end up giving it away because you believe that I can't be a good person. If I have money, that shows that I'm not a good person, and I have a strong desire to be a good person. I want to be a good person. And therefore, you have this weird, crazy, unconscious behavior that you then give your money away. You donate it. You spend it on other people, because if you have got money, it's going to prove that you're not a good person, that you're a bad person. So can you see how absolutely crazy our behavior becomes, and what happens to us when we have these preconceived ideas because they're based on somebody else's opinion? So I just want you to read this, go through this, and I've just detailed it here in this way. So convictions, assumptions, prejudices are learned by conditioning. Conditioning is continuous reinforcement and repetition. So my parents every Sunday had to go to church. I mean, gosh, we went to Sunday school first thing in the morning, church in the morning, then we had an open air service in the afternoon, then church in the evening, then we had Bible study on a Wednesday night, choir practice on a Thursday night. Our whole lives revolved around church. So you can see how this conditioning then happens, because it's reinforcement, it's repetition, it's ongoing. Then that leads to certain expectations. So certain expectations is I am then expected to be a good person based on this conditioning, and then the behavior, so it results in a certain behavior. The behavior then becomes a habit. The behavior turns into an attitude. So I just want to make a point here about how our own assumptions affect how we treat other people. So I've got this activity that I usually do when I'm training people in person, and specifically in a group setting, and I'll say to them, I want them to help me to make a decision. And I have 3 fictitious characters, and I say the one's name is John, he's a scientist, there's Sally, she works in a factory, and there's Anna, she's a nurse. And I'll say, and they've all got a life-threatening disease, illness, and I've got one pack of medicine, I can only help one of them. Which one would you like to help? You need to make a decision. And some people will choose the scientist, the other one the single mom, the other one the nurse. And I then give them a little bit more information. I'll give them more information about John's gay. Sally has got 2 children. Not Sally, or the one that works in the factory's got 2 children. Anna has got a second job. She moonlights at a brothel. And then people then reshuffle their decisions and they move around the room, because I usually get them to move around the room. And then I'll give them a third option, and I'll say, well, but John is a scientist, he's gay, but he's celibate. So he doesn't. And then I would say, Sally, who's got 2 children, her husband died, but she actually inherited a few million pounds, dollars, whatever. And the nurse who moonlights at the brothel, she actually moonlights as an HIV support person. She's an educator, so she helps educate people about diseases. And then people change their decisions again. And then we have a conversation afterwards, and I say to them, now tell me why. Why did you make a decision to help John or Sally or Anna? And you know what comes out? Their own prejudice. And it's always a very heartfelt, shocking activity, because people are shocked at how they are prejudiced unconsciously based on how they've been raised and how they've been taught. And it's always an eye-opener. So if you ever find yourself speaking negatively about other people, or you find yourself treating somebody differently, or if you have a negative thought about somebody else, it's a good idea to check what that assumption is. What is that prejudice, and where did it come from? Because maybe it's somebody else's prejudice. Maybe it's somebody else's assumption. And the thing about assumptions as well is, when I use this activity in a classroom or in a training room, is that it is done in an instant. Just like that, I'll say to them, right, I want you to make a decision right now. And they do it without even thinking. So if you think about people in terms of, let's look at racism, right? So people become racist because they're of a fear. So wherever that original idea started, so people went, well, you know what? That person is different to me. Their skin color is different to me. Their mannerisms are different. Their culture is different to me. I have a fear. Oh my gosh, I can't trust black people. I don't know how to deal with black people. I don't know. So the fear creates that whole conviction, assumption, belief, which then turns into you behaving like a racist. You treat other people badly because of that fear, because of that preconceived idea that you picked up from your parents, your forefathers, the community at large, your culture, wherever. And I'm just showing you that is how this happens, how we become prejudiced in life against, even if you look at people who are gay, should I say, people who, it doesn't matter, anything. If you look at any strife in the world, any bad behavior towards other people, any prejudices against other people, this is how it is created. Okay, so it works the same with other issues in terms of, so not massive things when it comes to racism and different religions. I mean, there's lots of prejudice around different religions. The Christians historically fighting against the Muslims, and there's so much prejudice around there based on fear. But it also comes down to your other beliefs that could be irrational, your unconscious beliefs. So for instance, if you've always had problems and you've never been successful. So for instance, if I've said I've always had to be a poor person so that I can be a good person, that has contributed to me not being successful in the past with my business. Because how can I be successful in my business if I can't have money, or should I say financially successful in my business, if I give all my money away, or I don't want to receive money for my work? I mean, for years, I did most of my work for free. This is how insane this belief was for me. I used to do my work for free. I used to pay to have my books printed, and then I would give away my books for free. I wouldn't sell them because I was so determined to be a good person, and a good person could not have money. Can you see how crazy this is? How irrational this is? Forgive me for using the word crazy, but that is how it really affects our lives. I mean, I bankrupted myself completely, totally, and utterly because the minute I did make money and I was financially successful, I gave it all away to help other people. So this is a very important point for you to understand how this happens. So not only so that you can help yourself to get out of this, to break the cycle, to get rid of these irrational beliefs, which creates your life, your behavior, and how you live your life, but also so that you can help other people to do the same.